Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. In this video we will be looking at another in our series of Global War 1936 to 1945 expansion sets. This one is called Neuschabenland, or the New Berlin. So this one is all about Antarctica. You might be wondering why Antarctica was included on your map, and I don't see anywhere else really that it's referenced in the rules or anything except for in this particular expansion set. So I guess they put an awful lot into this expansion set. I don't entirely understand it though, but like the value of the strategy. But that's because I haven't played it either. Like if you've played this, and I'd love for you to put a comment in the comment section and let me know how it went. Like, did it go well? I like the units that they give you. There's some really cool units in this thing, and I'm not saying it's not worth the money. I'm not so certain that if I was playing Germany that I would want to use this this expansion set, because the strategy seems to take you away from where I think you need to be. Like maybe that's the whole point though. Like the power structure in the world, and in this game, but in the world, is mostly concentrated in the northern hemisphere. All the powerful countries in the world, all the powerful armies and technologies and everything, they're all up in the northern hemisphere up there. And then once you start getting past the equator down here, you know, that's when things, there's not as many, right? Like you look down here and there's the poorer countries in the world, right? There's some notable exceptions, of course, but so maybe that's the whole point, is to get away from all those power structures up there and have a base down here. There's the scheme, there's the units down there, and so that you can exploit the soft underbelly of the world down here. Maybe that's what the point of this thing is. We'll see. But let's just take a look here. So here's Antarctica, and it stretches all the way across your board here. And you know, like this one's New Zealand, this one's Australia, French, Norwegian, British, this one's unclaimed, and there's this tiny little section here, German Antarctica, and that's where you're starting from. This would be your starting base right there. So, but what you need to understand though is it's not one long strip along the bottom of a map. It's like a kind of like a circle, right? Not a perfect circle, but kind of like a circle. If you were to wrap it all around. And so, and like theoretically in this scheme, there are passages that go through there. So those could be exploited by the Germans, but by nobody else. And it's because the Germans have theoretically mapped them and everything like that. So I'll read you what they say here, and you can see what I mean. So, in this expansion, we explore Antarctica, the great southern continent, and its albeit hypothetical role in World War II. In reality, Germans did have an interest in Antarctica. In 1937, Germany sent an expedition aboard the MS Schwabenland, primarily for the purposes of establishing a whaling station. The German venture to Antarctica is fraught with myth, and so for the purposes of making an interesting expansion, we're going to write a bit of alternative history. And this is where that alternative history begins. Okay, so the German exploration of 1937 was surprised to find a high volume of low salinity water flowing from a wide opening in the glacial ice on the Prince Martha coast. Miles of navigable passageways in the Antarctic interior lead to an enormous geothermally heated lake. The Germans quickly established a submarine base and fortress in Antarctica and mapped passageways all through the South Polar ice cap. Antarctica quickly became a base for submarine operations against South Africa and Australia. Later in the war, German Base 211 served as a research lab for top secret projects and a redoubt from which the last vestiges of the Nazi Empire could hold out. So, if you were playing the Fall of the Reich along with this scheme, if you remember back to that one, as long as you had that little bell, Hitler was still alive, right? So I guess you could fly it down to here. Not sure if that helps you, but win the game. It helps you stay alive, but I'm not sure if it helps you win the game. So let's just take a look here. Okay, so they have all these different schemes. Now this is a series of schemes, really. It's not one. Like normally these sets are one little scheme, right? So you do all this. When this one, you choose. See all those different choices on there? Now you can choose 3 of them during the game. One of them has to be from the top line here. So you choose this one, right? And then a second one could be chosen from these ones here, the middle ones. And then the third choice would be down here. And you don't have to choose 3. You could choose 1 or you could choose 2, but you can't choose more than 3. And if you did choose 3, one of them would have to be the top, one would have to be from the middle, and one would have to be from the bottom. And this can only be done in 1946. So obviously you'd have to be playing with some rules that took you beyond the normal end date of 1945, July of 1945. So anyway, let's just move this camera back here and I'll read on. So the Antarctic rules. Antarctica can be occupied by land units and flown over by aircraft. Germany may enter any land zone in Antarctica without a declaration of war. Land units still cannot move between land zones. So you can occupy a land zone, you can fly over a land zone, but you can't cross from one land zone into another, I guess just because of the harsh climate. So if you wanted to go to another land zone, you'd have to get onto a transport and go to that land zone, I suppose. So for the geothermal tunnels, beginning in January of 1941, the Germans, and only the Germans, they can non-combat move any submarine that begins its movement in sea zone 115 to any sea zone adjacent to Antarctica. This uses all the allowed submarine movement of the turn. So that's important, though, that it's non-combat. What they're saying is this sea zone here, where everything is sitting right now, you can move a sub from that sea zone to any sea zone. Now, normally you could move 3, so that's fine. But here, 1, 2, 3. So you'd normally only be able to move to here. But this, they're saying you could move all the way down here if you wanted to. Or here, like these ones don't help you too much. You could just go the other way if you want to do that, right? But here though, like these would be interesting places to pop up now, wouldn't they? You could certainly disrupt these guys. However, remember that this is a non-combat move. If it was a combat move, then yeah, you could certainly pop up and create some havoc down here south of Australia. But in a non-combat move, you move through the geothermal tunnels and you pop up anywhere. And like I said, you're not actually moving along there. You're moving through. So you're actually going through Antarctica and coming out at that place over there, right? You're not actually moving around Antarctica. Okay, so and then there's no units. So all units gained from purchasing a scheme are immediately placed in German Antarctica or the adjacent sea zone, which is sea zone 115. These units require no factory or prerequisite technology and do not count against any per turn production limits. Some units featured here can be purchased for the German player for regular use, and you'll see those too. Like they'll give you stats on the units, and it'll give you costs and things like that. But if you're purchasing the scheme, you get the units. You don't have to develop the technologies that it says you have to develop. That's only if you're not going to use the scheme. So you could still purchase, like this guy here. That'd be cool. You could purchase one of these things in the game that you're playing. But you would have to develop the technology first. So adding to schemes. Players may purchase Antarctic schemes up to 3 times per game. Like I said, there's the 37 to 41, and then once more from 42 to 45, and once more in 46. Players do not add additional bases, but do convert the secret base into base 211 if they purchase the 46 scheme. So this one here is the secret base, right? And this one here is the 211 base. So 211 base is the only available in 1946. Before that, you would be purchasing this base. So that first one there, the secret base marker, acts as a combined sub and seaplane base. This base cannot be strategically bombed or otherwise targeted. It can be captured if the land zone it is in is captured. Germany may build additional secret bases for 3 and 3, so 3 on one turn, 3 on the next on a different turn, right? For a total of 6. So base 211 there. It's a naval base, air base, and minor factory. Only one such base may exist and can only come onto the board if a player purchased the Antarctica 1946 scheme. So these ones you could purchase in the game if you agreed with all your opponents that these were available for purchase. This one you can only purchase in this scheme. So the naval units. Now there's this thing here. This is the Neuschabenland. Now, really, that's just a transport ship. In all respects, except as follows: it can only transport this thing, the seaplane. So what it was is it was a catapult ship. So you would use this like as if it were a light carrier. Like a light carrier in this game can land one fighter on it, right? Well, this thing here can land this thing on it, and that's basically all that ship is good for. Then we have the Type 11B cruiser submarine. So that's this thing here. It's a cross between a cruiser and a submarine. Had it been built, it would have mounted a bunch of guns. I'm not going to list them all, and a float plane. 4 were laid down, but none were completed. It was thought some may have been completed and sailed in secret, and there are reports today that one lies sunken off of Cape Cod. So they're thinking that one of these was sunk off Cape Cod. Don't know if that's true or not. Okay, so now the stats on that. So it attacks at 3, it defends at 2, it moves 3. And if you were to purchase it in the game, it would cost 4 and 3. So $4 one turn, $3 the next turn. And it's available in January 1939. Now, the other good thing about this one here is that the convoy rating bonus is +3 on it. Normally on a sub, the convoy rating bonus is 2, right? So that one is 3. Hang on, let me take a big drink of my coffee. Okay. So then the other submarine here. Now this is a wicked submarine. This one here. It's really powerful. That's the Type 16 submarine. It was a highly advanced late war German sub. They were unlike other U-boats, capable of operating submerged for much of their time at sea. So listen to the stats on this: attack 5, defense 3, movement 4. It's just a wicked little sub there, right? And the cost was 9. And that's if you're not playing with this scheme, obviously. Like, you can just purchase it in the game. So it's available after Germany has constructed at least 3 advanced submarines. So obviously you need to develop advanced submarine technology and purchase 3 advanced subs, and then you could purchase this one if you were playing without this scheme. Now also, it has a convoy rating bonus of +4, and it can only be chosen as a casualty on an attack or a defense roll of 1 or 2. So your opponent has to roll a 1 or a 2 in order to sink this thing. And that's because of the stealth. It has stealth technology with it. So as far as this thing goes, this seaplane, it doesn't have any attack or defense value. That's a DO-16 whale. What it is, you pair that with a sub to get an extra +1 on its convoy rating. So it moves 4 and it costs 3. The cost, a very low cost, because it doesn't have any attack or defense. You just pair it with one of these subs and you add +1 to the convoy rating modifier. So you could do some convoy rating down here if you use this scheme, that's for sure. If you were playing this scheme, I wonder though, like if you lost this sub, if you could purchase it again, even though you don't have the technology. You probably could, because you're playing with the scheme, and you have the costs here as well, right? So the next thing is this jet fighter. And this is a pretty cool looking jet fighter. It is a vertical takeoff, and I can't seem to stand it up. I tried. It's supposed to stand up. And anyway, it's a vertical takeoff interceptor. So because Antarctica lacked any runways, one of those things, they launch from vertical silos in the Antarctic mountains and land on skids on the ice where they are recovered. It's a jet fighter for all game purposes. So it attacks at 8, it defends at 8. The interception value on those is 5. The thing is though, it only moves 2 and it costs 8. So if you were to purchase it in the game, and I don't know why you would, you'd have to have jet aircraft technology. So I can't see why you would ever want to purchase one of those things. And the reason is because it only goes 2 spaces, right? So you 1 and then 2, right? You can only go to there with it. So that's, you might as well buy a jet, right? Go 4 spaces. Then there's the Hanubu 2, and that's this thing here. Looks like a flying saucer. Now that is something that you could only build in 1946. It's actually a tactical bomber. So it attacks at 8, it defends at 8, it moves 3, and it costs 14. So the availability, so after Germany develops jet aircraft, and it is 1946 or later. So I guess you could play with that in the regular game, but it has to be 1946 or later. The one drawback with that thing is it only moves 3 spaces. But I guess if you had an air base, then you would think that you'd be able to go 4 spaces. But it does have target selection of 1 to 2, and that's against land and naval units. And the other cool thing about it is that it could land in a zone that you captured this turn. So that helps. So the SS infantry, so you put a couple of infantry on top of your marker here. There's a couple of those markers. Nice, cool markers, eh? I like them. But anyway, you just put your own infantry on there, I guess. So the SS, they attack at 3, defend at 5, move 1, and cost 4. We've been over those guys before. They're just, they're as powerful as any infantry you're going to find in the game. Now this guy here, this is probably the coolest thing in the whole thing, in this whole scheme here. Oop. Let me just throw him around the board. See how cool he flies? So they're Special Forces SS, and they're equipped with rocket packs. They're called Raktenjager. The Raktenjager use these packs to navigate difficult terrain and set up fire positions, infiltrate enemy lines, and undertake reconnaissance missions. Now they attack at 4, defend at 4, move 1, and cost 4. So good stats on them. If you were to just play them in a regular game, once Germany has developed advanced artillery, you can build 1 per turn. And the really good thing about them is they have first strike, so they'd be shooting at the same time as the artillery shoots. And then you remove any casualties and then carry on with it. Okay, so then there's this thing here. This is a surface-to-air missile, and really what it is, it's an anti-aircraft thing. So you would use that as your anti-aircraft gun, and it's pretty good. It has 3 shots at 5 instead of 3 shots at 3. It has a movement of 1, and if you were to purchase it in the game, it would cost 7. But in the scheme here, it looks like if you purchase the scheme in 44, 45, or 46, then you get one of those. If you purchase the scheme before that, then you're just going to get the regular anti-aircraft gun in this game. And so that's about it. So, but they do have some compatibility notes, like talks about the Hanubu being able to rearm if you're using the Ordnance 1 rules, and talks about the H-17. I don't know any of the Ordnance 1 rules, but just so you know, like, you can combine it with Ordnance 1. With fighting railways, there's no railways that can be built in Antarctica. With the expansion set secret submarine bases, there is a submarine base that's randomly generated in Antarctica. That this scheme does not stop that from happening. So you could play with this and secret submarine bases, and that submarine can still exist in Antarctica with this scheme going on at the same time. And as far as the going nuclear scheme, a nuclear bomb can destroy an Antarctic base. The Germans can use Base 211 as if it had a nuclear reactor and research marker as an inherent part of the base. So that's only if you have that cool base though, right? So, that is it. It does talk about seaplanes on the last page, but we've talked about those before, what seaplanes do. And if you really want to know and you didn't see those other videos, then just go on their site there and look for seaplane bases. You can find it in if nothing else, in the Neuschabenland on the last page, this scheme. So yeah, I guess probably the best thing about this is that you'd be raiding this convoy line down here, right? And they give you a base for which to do that. It forces the British to come down here and chase after you. You could certainly disrupt these guys' plans over here. So yeah, really, you're really screwing up the British. Also, the FEC down here is down in the south. The Americans aren't really in the south, and it would take a lot for them to get down there. So really, what you're doing is distracting the British, I think, with this scheme. So whether or not it's worth the money that you're going to spend on it, I don't mean the money that costs to purchase these units. I mean the in-game cost to purchase the schemes. I'm not sure if it's worth that much money or not. That's something that you'd have to play it and see. You know, like, can I take off enough with the convoy raiding, and can I sink enough Australian boats without losing my own? Is it easy for the British to come down and take that base out and use it for themselves? I don't know. These are things that you'd have to find out. I think you'd only find that out playing a number of games with this scheme, because you could play one game and the player just doesn't know how to deal with it, the British player. You can play another game where bang, you're gone after 2 turns or something. I don't know. It's just, like I said, it's something you got to try out. So that is Neuschabenland, or New Berlin, which is what that means. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.